pretend that we know it all. We wanna pretend that we know, but just don't let the farthest on the trip farthest. Know that we know. We wanna pretend that we know, but just don't let the farthest on the trip farthest. Know that we know.
Hello, this is Kerberos. Welcome and thank you for joining me on first ever Devlog for my yet untitled game project. Just hoping to take the chance to kind of show off a little bit of what I've been working on. So right off the bat, you may wonder, why am I looking at this third person project for my strategy game? And this is the GASP ALS game animation sample project, advanced layer system merger that someone created and is a project you can find on GitHub, and also there's a Patreon version. So yeah, why are we looking at this? The focus of this first devlog is movement and locomotion. And when just starting out with the game, this was obviously the first thing I was going to have to tackle. And my project at its core is basically a blending of this game animation sample project with the advanced turn-based tile toolkit, which I'll kind of showcase next, which is where kind of the turn-based strategy elements, the skeleton of those elements come from. So I knew, I needed animations. This project is free. Epic Games puts it out, and then this guy, merged these two different systems to make this really good motion captured, AAA quality locomotion system. And it gives you vaulting, climbing, all that from GASP, and then the ALS is what's giving you, you're seeing these different weapon overlays that you can switch through that kind of impose themselves on those basic animations. And so that you have different weapon overlays, and then you have overlay states like wounded, handcuffed, those kinds of things. And then you'll see why this was really valuable to my project. And it was one of the first big challenges I faced, was integrating this with that turn-based tile toolkit. So yeah, let's hop over to that. All right, so this is the advanced turn-based tile toolkit. You can find this on Epic Games Fab Store. It is a really great project, honestly. You'll notice even in the little highlight reel I did, you'll see that this is the basis, the core of my project. And I had first started, in the start of that clip where it was like how it started, that was before I knew this project existed, and I was trying to create these systems from scratch using nav mesh movement before, I wasn't sure if I actually needed a grid. And then I came to the conclusion that I definitely did need a grid, and man, I tried for a little while to create something like this before finding this, and I will say this saved me. For $60, this project is incredible. This probably saved me like 6 months to a year of work, if I could have ever even come up with something like this on my own. Yeah, you basically have a very rudimentary XCOM to start out with here. So just to show like what this is, and then so you can kind of know what I've added and changed in my project. You'll see these animations are super basic. They're using a super simple animation blueprint, but there is even enemy AI, which is a helpful starting point. But I knew right away, like this is not cool. This is not sexy. These like simple anim state animation blueprints. I wanted something better, which is of course where the game animation sample project comes in. But this is like a great starting point, right? And so changing these out to make your little guys move with this super complex animation blueprint that comes from the game animation sample project was just an incredible amount of work, and I really honestly wasn't even sure it was possible. Now that I've done it, it would be a lot easier to do it again, but knowing almost nothing about any of this the first time, it was really complex. But yeah, you'll see, so like the movement, like this project is not about animations, the turn-based tile toolkit. it's the grid system, it's the cover system, it's the turn system, and to an extent, these abilities and actions are helpful starters too. So you'll see like these attack animations are really simple. If it doesn't, is it weird that really messed up performance? But so it's got the Overwatch, the AI will move and shoot and use like a basic grenade or heal ability. But yeah, like you can hear the sound effects. I guess what I just want to, showcase is this doesn't really get you anything in terms of animations and sound effects. So whatever you see, coming up, that's all stuff I've added. Okay, so in the project now, just to kind of show what these movements look like, in their more refined form in the project. You've got a character here, 2 weapons. You can see I've added UI, primary weapon, secondary weapon, and ammunition tracking system. They have a reload ability. So if I click on 2 or go into an aim state, you can see, they ready the weapon, and you can look around. This is pretty cool when there's flashlights in the night levels, as you kind of saw in the opener. And then if you press this X key, or I have it on on the keyboard, it swaps weapons. And I think this looks pretty clean. You got the pistol going back into the holster, got some sound effects. You're aiming with the pistol. So basic movement. If you do a short move, the character will move with the weapon, at the ready, which I think is kind of appropriate for XCOM. Ending turn there, and I'm going to do a dash move now. You'll see they kind of sprint with the weapon down. In like a down state. So just showing that with the pistol too, weapon up, short move, I guess do another short move just to end the turn, and then they do kind of a crazy sprint, one-handed pistol sprint, but there you go. And it's important gameplay-wise, that difference in animation matters, because if you're doing a dash, that has some implications for like your Overwatch, reaction shot dodge percentage. But yeah, so next thing to kind of show here is, of course, the traversal. Game animation sample project comes with those traversal animations that I was showing at the very start of this. And that was another thing that was a huge challenge to get into the game. Again, if you knew what you were doing, it's not hard, but obviously I didn't. So you'll see, here's this is kind of a different vault because it's an object you can actually stand on. They'll climb up, they'll climb down. And then there's different kind of vaulting speeds. So if they're running, you'll often see this kind of like flip over vault. But if you started right next to it, and you don't have momentum, watch, they do like a slower kind of climb over. Or I guess they do that in slow motion, but like you can see it, it's dynamic. It takes this stuff into account, which is really important for this kind of XCOM style game, right? So just do another fast one. You get a different animation there. And then the last thing I'll show here is, so I think XCOM has this like diagonal cover tiles. It's kind of complicated. I definitely wasn't going to make the traversal work diagonally. So basically what you get is you can take diagonal cover, but you can't occupy the tiles that it is in, so you'll get cover from 2 directions, basically. Moving on from that, I think anyone would agree if you want to have depth, figuratively and literally, in your turn-based strategy game, you got to have elevation. So what I'm showcasing here are pole and ladder climbing animations. So this is a pole, gutter, obviously. Pretty clean, pretty good-looking animation as you come up here and then kind of take cover on the roof. Going down, you'll see does not look quite as good, but yeah, you could shoot from up here. You're in cover. The weapons will elevate and depress, which I'll showcase after. So showing a going down animation, doesn't hug it quite the way it should, and it's sped up going down, but it still could be faster. I really desperately need like a sliding down pole and sliding down ladder animation for these. Okay, so showing the ladders in action. I've switched it back to night here. I think it looks kind of cool and cinematic in this barn. So when before I go up there, you'll see these meshes are becoming transparent when you're zoomed in, and then they solidify as you zoom out. That's to basically let you see underneath. If you're inside a building, I wanted to move on the ground, I zoom in until it's transparent. I can give a movement down on the ground. The pathing isn't set up for everything in here yet, but then I zoom out and I can issue an order up high. So let's get up on the ladder. you'll see, the character's weapons holster. This is a different ladder animation from the pole. They come around. I'm going to switch to the pistol because I like the pistol grip with the flashlight. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And then you'll see when you fire, the character is going to actually angle their aim down, and it is, there's math happening on how close the target is so that angle is pretty close to correct. So I'll show that. There you go. Pistol didn't penetrate the armor, so you get the metallic pings, and then just showing them coming down. They'll kind of, it's sped up, but yeah, a slide would be cool. All right, last thing to showcase here is the high cover movement and animations. So no animation montage here. This is all driven by the GASPALS inputs, showing, when you go into aim state, you can look left and right, but your weapon doesn't actually raise when you're in high cover. And then just showing here, as you move around this randomly placed single pillar of cover, how your character kind of ducks into cover from any direction. So hopping over to showing shooting from cover. This was kind of complex to implement, driving these inputs, but yeah, the character basically will pick the right direction to exit cover from when they shoot. If it's straight ahead, they'll bias to the right because they're shooting right-handed. You'll see there's armored targets and unarmored targets here. You'll notice a different, hit, react, and potential ricochets if you pay close attention. But so yeah, they go left for the guy on the left, and then these other two on the sides are considered near flanks, so they'll actually back up instead of pushing left or right, which I think looks cleaner. Got a little reload animation there. So yeah, they'll back up instead of pushing left for that guy. And then do the same for the guy on the right, the armored guy on the right. And then one thing I forgot to show was firing from low cover. So obviously they crouch in low cover, they stand up for the duration of the shot, and then when that shot ends, the unit will crouch back down into low cover. Okay, that is the end of Devlog number 1, focused on movements and animations. Thank you for joining me. If you watched all the way to the end, really, I'm happy people have some level of interest in this. I've been working on the project for about 6 months now. Obviously part-time, just in my free time, starting in January of 2026. And I think the progress has been pretty good, and I'm happy with it. And I plan to keep adding more to it slowly over time. I don't know how often I'll post something like this. I've done a lot of work on combat type stuff already, new combat abilities, modifications to the AI, things that are different from the turn-based TAL toolkit. So I'll probably do a second dev blog focused on combat in a few months here. I don't know how many of these, I'll make in total, but yeah, thanks for listening in out here.